Hey there everybody, and welcome to my review of the MG ZS crossover SUV. Now, if I told you that the MG ZS starts at just under £12,500, you're probably not going to believe me, but it does. Now, I've got the top of the range exclusive with the 1.5 litre petrol engine, and that starts at just over £15,500, and you still feel like you get an awful lot of car for your money. Now, I have to say, when MG came back to the UK a few years ago with the 6 and the GS, they weren't exactly the most striking cars to look at, but you have to admit, the ZS actually looks like a very striking car, yes, albeit modelled or looking very similar to a pre-facelift Mazda CX-5, which is no bad thing. It's actually got some real nice proportions and angles to it, and I do like the chunky lights on the rear. It's actually quite a striking car to look at, and because MG haven't really sold too many of them as of yet, every time I see one you've really got to give it a bit of a second glance, and it is actually a very practical car as well. Now, I've had the ZS for a week and I'm going to let you know what it's like in this review. So let's jump into the driver's seat and find out what it's like there. So, sat in the ZS, I have to say it's actually very surprising in here. Granted, it's not as striking as the exterior, but there are a few nice touches and some genuine surprises that I would not have expected in this car. So, firstly, we've got some soft touch plastics on top of the dash and leather on the inside of the doors. However, on the top of the doors, yes, they are a bit hard and scratchy. I have to say though, there are a couple of nice touches with the metal effect on the dash as well as chrome surrounds over the vents, and it does give the, the cabin a bit of a lift, considering the fact that this is actually very much a budget car. We've also got some faux carbon fibre effect around the 8-inch touchscreen, and I have to say that's standard on all models, but on this top of the range exclusive you do get sat-nav as standard, and you also get Apple CarPlay. However, Android users, you are left out as there is no Android Auto. Also, when it comes to cubby spaces, we got some decent door bins. The glove box is a bit disappointing. A couple of cup holders next to the handbrake, and like a little tray area where you can remove the rubber mat, which is, yeah, a little bit convenient if you want to put some coins there, but you don't really want them on display. However, I would like to see a couple of extra niceties come to the car. So, for example, an armrest, and also on this top of the range exclusive with the leather seats, also to have them heated, just to kind of lift and give more of a plush feel to the car. In front of the gear stick, we have got a little area where you can put your phone, and there is a USB charging point, and there's also a 12-volt socket. But I have to say, overall, it's actually genuinely surprising. I do also like the leather steering wheel. It feels nice in your hand and has got a flat bottom to it, so it does give a bit of a sporty edge. And with this exclusive, you also get cruise control. But I have to say, the way that this stalk sticks out, it kind of feels like a VW Group product, so you're kind of expecting it to be adaptive cruise control, but it's not. It's just standard cruise control. But other than that, I mean, you do sit a little bit higher than you would do in a regular hatchback, and access to the driver's seat is actually really good. So if you have got mobility issues, it's very easy to get into the car. However, you can get a good driving position, but not a great one, because the steering wheel adjusts for rake, but not reach. That's just a little bit disappointing in a car of this class. And if you were to look at something like, I don't know, say at a Rona, then that would have a bit more versatility to the cabin. However, that is a more expensive car. But I have to say, first impressions are actually very, very good considering the cost of this car. So that's enough of the front seat. Let's go have a seat in the back. Sat in the back of the ZS again is another nice surprise from MG. That driver's seat is set to my driving position. I'm 5'7" tall and 5'7" wide, and as you can see, I've got a very good amount of knee room and very good amount of headroom. I've actually managed to get a couple of passengers over 6 foot sat in the back of the MG ZS, and they've had no complaints in regards to outright space. However, their only niggles have been actually getting into and out of the car, because they've got long legs, and although the doors open quite wide, they actually found that the aperture to get in is quite narrow, so it's a bit of a struggle getting into the car, but well, not for me and not for someone of my height. They also found that when sat in place, the actual seatbelt buckle is actually digging into them, and if you are of a wider disposition, you might find it a bit of a struggle fastening your seatbelt. But other than that, the actual space they had no complaints over. You also get some nice magazine, or shall I say aeroplane style pockets on the back of the seats. You've got a couple of door bins, unlike the little MG3 where you don't, so you can put your bottle storage there and there's no fighting in the back seats. You could get 3 people at a squeeze or at a push in the back here, and there's a very light transmission bump coming through the floor, and you have got Isofix supports on the outer seats, and they all have, just like the MG3, you can see the metal bars there, so it's actually easy to attach a child seat in there. Granted, again, it's kind of like a budget thing on the car, but it's actually really nice when there are premium cars out there where it can be a bit difficult fastening a child seat. Other than that though, it's actually very good back here. You've got electric windows and they actually go all the way down, and the windows themselves are nice and big, allowing a lot of light in. There is no cup holders on the centre seat here. There's no armrest that comes down, nor is there any kind of ski hatch that opens if you need to load longer items. But let's be honest, I don't think we were expecting that in a car of this segment and this price tag. But again, it's another good tick in the box for MG. This is a very spacious and practical car. So enough of the back seat, let's go see what it's like in the boot. Opening the boot of the MG ZS presents you with, and get ready for it, 448 litres of space. That is a huge amount of boot space in a car of this class and against its rivals. It beats the likes of the Dacia Duster, Seat Arona, and even puts it into the same class as the Nissan Qashqai. That's a huge amount of boot space, and you could almost forgive the MG for not having any kind of tethering points or a 12-volt socket, but hopefully they'll remedy that for when, you know, the facelift comes in a couple of years' time. You do get a couple of extra cubby spaces on the outer side of the boot, and if you do put the seats down, they don't go completely flat, but it does make it easier loading larger items in, and you get just over 1,300 litres of boot space with those seats down. There isn't really much in the way of versatility. You can't put the parcel shelf under the boot floor, and I will say in this configuration it's actually not the full 448. You do have a variable boot floor, and I'll show you here. And when lowered down, that's now the full 448 litres. But it's still a huge amount of boot space. It's a nice square area for loading in, so it is very, very practical indeed. Hats off to MG for that, and it does remind me a little bit of the old Skodas where you got an awful lot of metal for your money. So that's all the practicality side. Let's take it for a drive. Engine choices in the ZS, well, you've got 2 to choose from. There's a 1.5 litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder petrol engine mated to a 5-speed gearbox, which is what I've got here, or you can go for a 1 litre 3-cylinder turbocharged engine, and that is only mated to an automatic gearbox. Now, this is the same engine that you get in the MG3 little hatchback, and although it doesn't suit the characteristics of the little MG3, and you can see my review of that car in the top right hand corner if you want to click on the box there, it does actually suit the ZS a lot more so. It's a lot more relaxing in the way it drives, and with 104 brake horsepower, okay, it's not the most sprightly because there's no turbo. 0 to 60 is around 11 seconds, but it actually feels like it's got enough oomph to overtake any traffic, so you won't have any issues there. Economy wise, well, I've been driving this car around town a lot and I've been getting an average of around 30 miles per gallon. So I will say, if you do look at one of those kind of turbocharged engines that a lot of rivals have, they will actually end up producing a lot more miles per gallon, and they do feel a lot more efficient. That's probably a weak link with the ZS or with MG as a whole, because the actual engine itself does feel quite old-fashioned, and I would probably recommend the 1 litre with the automatic. However, I've not driven that one yet, but if you would like me to, and like me to do a review of it, please click on the box in the top right hand corner and answer the question with, would you like me to review that 1 litre, yes or no? Hopefully you'll say yes. But I have to say, for the most part, the engine, yeah, I've not had any major issues with it. It pulls along quite nicely, and yeah, it suits the ZS pretty well, a lot better than it suits the 3. So steering wise in the ZS, it's not too bad. It's nowhere near as heavy as the MG3 little hatchback, but that's deliberately heavy because they really wanted to give it a kind of sporty feel to it, and it's very communicative through what's going on with the front wheels. In the ZS it is a lot lighter, and at the same time there's not an awful lot of feedback, although I will say you do know for the most part where you are sticking the front wheels. Now on this exclusive trim level you do get steering modes. So you've got 3 to choose from. There's urban, which means it lightens it up, so it makes it easy for parking and manoeuvring at slow speed. You've got normal for normal driving, and then you've got dynamic for a more sportier feel, or what that means is it just kind of puts a little bit of extra weight in it. And I will be honest, I've been driving most of the week I've had this car in dynamic mode for that sporty feel, even though in its most sportiest setup, well, steering wise, it's nowhere near as heavy as the little MG3 hatchback, which is a little bit disappointing, but I have to say for this type of car it just means you've got a bit more communication and feedback going on through the front wheels. But for the most part, the steering will get you where you want to go around the corners, but it's nowhere near as sharp as something like a Seat Arona. Ride-wise in the ZS is actually pretty good. The suspension setup is really nice and soft, and it deals with most of the bumps and imperfections pretty well, although there is a little bit of noise that intrudes into the cabin. I have to say, because it is all nice and soft, the trade-off is if you go a little bit excitable into the corners, there is quite a lot of lean. And the front suspension and the rear suspension seem to have the same amount of kind of pliance to it. So if you go over a sleeping policeman, it does tend to rock back and forth a little bit, and it takes a little bit of time to stabilise. So if you have got any passengers that suffer from motion sickness or seasickness, they could feel a little bit queasy, particularly if you're driving this car on a bit of a B road. But for the most part, and for everyday driving, it deals with it really well, and I gotta say I've got no complaints about it. It is soft, but again, something like a Seat Arona does ride a lot better, but then again, you are paying for it. Gearbox wise, as mentioned, if you go for the 1.5 litre petrol, it's a 5-speed manual, and that's the only choice you can have. And if you go for the 1 litre turbocharged petrol engine, it's an automatic, and again, that's your only choice with that engine. The 5-speed manual, it's not too bad, it's not the slickest, there's a bit of notchiness to it, and it feels very much the same as the gearbox you got in the MG3 little hatchback. But I will say the rubber, I'm not sure if it's just due to the wear on the gear stick, because this car's done nearly 10,000 miles, but the rubber on this feels a lot better than that on the MG3. I don't mind having to kind of grab this on a regular basis in terms of changing gear, and it feels okay. And that being said as well, the handbrake, the rubber on there actually feels a lot nicer as well compared to that of the MG3 hatchback. But those were my little niggles that I had with the little MG3. But on the ZS, no, I gotta say, I got no complaints over that. Again, it's a nice decent manual gearbox, but again, it's not the best compared to more expensive rivals. But then again, you do get what you pay for. As mentioned earlier, visibility is pretty good. You've got some chunky A pillars, and you've got a gigantic C pillar at the back there, so your blind spot, well, you really can't see anything. It is a proper blind spot there, despite the tiny little windows that MG have put in. And the infotainment system, I mean, I'm loving the graphics on this screen. I mean, yes, cars like the Seat Arona have got that glorious 8-inch touchscreen, but this is an 8-inch touchscreen as well. And whereas on the MG3 it was actually very quick and responsive going through the various menus, because on the exclusive you do get sat-nav on the car as standard. Having that sat-nav system load up does actually take a bit of time, and it does slow down the actual kind of menu process and going through the various functions on the menu system, and that's a bit disappointing considering how much I really liked it on the MG3. There's a part of me thinking, could you possibly have this as an optional extra so customers can choose whether or not they want to have sat-nav on the exclusive or indeed on any of the other trim levels? And because you've got things such as Apple CarPlay on the car, for the most part you're going to end up using Google Maps, as at the moment that is deemed to be the best kind of sat-nav system to use, and it's right there free on your phone. But for the most part it does very well. You've got DAB radio, you've got a reversing camera. Okay, yes, the resolution isn't brilliant, but the fact of the matter is you've got a reversing camera as standard, along with parking sensors. Now, something I did notice with the parking sensors is as you get close to an obstacle behind you, as you're reversing to it, it gives you a little readout of actually how far away you are from it, but it doesn't seem to be the most accurate in the readouts it gives you. I was reversing into, well, up to a wall, shall I say, and it was, well, at one point it was saying I was 70 centimetres away, then it said I was 20 centimetres away, and then it went back up to 83, so it's a little hit and miss, and I would just say use the camera as more of a guide, or when the actual beeps on the parking sensor start flatlining, as that tends to give you an indication you've gone quite close. Like the little MG3, I am thoroughly surprised and impressed with what MG have done. You get an awful lot of car for your money with the ZS, and I am particularly surprised with the amount of rear passenger space and the boot space as well. That boot is just gargantuan, especially when you compare it to rivals even in the class above. What MG are doing really well is like the little touches in here, having an 8-inch touchscreen, the soft touch plastics, having things like Apple CarPlay and a reversing camera. These all add up to giving you a lot of value in the ZS, and it's something that I really like, and I hope that MG keeps that up. There has been recently announced an MG ZS or EZS, an electric version of this little crossover, and from the most part I'm hearing it might possibly be coming to the UK and is looking to offer at least 215 miles of range. That's a huge promise, particularly in this world of WLTP, where you've really got to hit the nail on the head in terms of what the car can achieve. A little birdie has told me that there are a couple of electric ZS's in the UK, so that is a promising start to think that there could be an electric version of this car on the way. And given the fact that if you didn't have an engine and you just got the batteries under the floor, that's going to be very, very competitive in what is going to be a very much a growing class. So hats off to MG for attempting that. So what are my final thoughts on the MG ZS? Well, after having it for a week, yeah, I am thoroughly surprised and impressed by it, and I really do like it. It's got character, it's got bags of room, and if you're not doing many miles and you want to buy a car that's got pretty much everything that you would need, this ticks all the boxes for you. It does very well, and the great thing about it is it drives pretty good. It doesn't drive spectacular, but it drives better than you would expect, and that's the great thing about it, is how it surprises you. The quality in here, yes, there is a lot of hard touch plastics and there's a little flash of soft touch on top of the dash, but let's be honest, most of the times you're not really touching these parts of the car, and well, it does feel as though it would stand the test of time. And with the fact that MG are putting out a 7-year warranty, which is incredibly competitive, if anything it's the class best along with Kia, that's high praise again from the British/Chinese manufacturer in terms of their confidence in their product. So I have to say, well done to MG. This is another very good car. Yes, it's not the best, but for the amount of money you're going to spend on it in terms of buying it, yeah, it's high praise indeed for the British brand. All we need now is the electric ZS to come here and bring us a 2-seater little sports car. So yeah, MG, you know what to do. So everyone, I hope you've enjoyed my review of the MG ZS crossover. As always, please hit that like button, and if you've got any questions or queries on the ZS, please put them down in the comments section below. As always, please hit that subscribe button and hit the bell notifications icon to let you know when I bring out a new video. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, so please follow on there for additional content, including live videos and static photos as well. Again guys, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care and bye-bye.